Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this podcast about artificial intelligence and machine learning, where we discuss artificial intelligence from all the perspectives, and all the possibilities, and all the pros and cons. So we try to cover a wide variety. With me, I have my good friend and a teacher, first of all, and as somebody who I admire very much for his skill sets and his curiosity, because that's what we match. We both have lots of curiosity, and we are always looking for some answers and trying to frame the question. So with me, I have Lucky. Hello, Lucky.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm excited to be part of this, and really, I'm not the expert, but what I do try to bring is a analytical or a perspective from outside of AI that really tries to bring a human feel and see and understand what is AI or what is deep learning or what is machine learning and what does it mean and where are we? And so I'm going to ask all the questions and be part of the intellectual conversations, and I'll probably just be the guy learning at the same time. So yes, I'll be part of this, and thank you.
Well, Lucky, we have such a wide variety of topics to conversate about.
Hmm.
We never tend to actually pick a topic, right? We just go with the flow. We just have that conversation. We have fun with it. But through that merges all these sort of use cases, either one that is a possibility or one that's in work and one that is already being proven to be what used to be a possibility. Now it is the reality, right?
Hmm.
And, we, of course, talk about movies and TV shows that brings
Yeah.
those possibilities into our TV screen. But, there has been lots of challenges in developing machine learning for its ability to perform, and
Hmm.
we can maybe talk about some of this today. Let's see something that you want to pick for a topic, and then we can discuss that.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can talk about the obvious stuff, like say, there's a lot of different types of AIs, or we could go into machine learning, but I look at the different types of AIs that people can associate and say, okay, I know what that is because I know that guy, and I want to benefit from that AI, and
Right,
like the big one that I think was Tesla's their ability to autopilot or to drive itself,
right.
and it started real cool with the auto parking, and ticket avoidance, and you know and I really like that,
Right.
um, um, uh, but I think Elon Musk said it. I think they said, yeah, I think in 2019 or something, he said we'll have it by 2020 where we're gonna have a car that can drive itself from California to New York or from East Coast to West Coast or something.
Right.
And he still didn't get it right, and they're still continuing to hammer it out, and it's constantly a moving target for someone where they think that AI, just once you start out, it just starts
Mhm.
to flower like a plant.
Right.
In reality, is just constant work and tweaking and understanding and redeveloping and innovation. And I think maybe that's probably the one that maybe we can cover a little bit. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, you tell
Well,
me.
that's that, the way you mentioned that, the difficulty of it, right? The
Yeah.
difficulty of developing an AI. So for human eyes to see an image and zoom into an image
Hmm.
is the patterns of seeing an image and having a very good understanding of that image.
Yeah.
For an artificial intelligence, it's opposite. It starts with a pixel, and that pixel is what gives birth to the full picture.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like that paradox of, like, who we are as human intelligence. The other side of the spectrum is the artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence does everything opposite of how we do it. So it's that. Have you ever heard that term mirror neuron? Like what
Mirror neuron.
mirror neuron? Like, as in what we're seeing outside of ourselves, internally we are seeing a backflip of a picture of it, and we're taking that in and processing it.
Mhm.
So kind of seeing like, seeing things outside of us left to right, but in our brain we're processing right to left.
Mhm.
It's just a way we process information. So when I say spectrum of human intelligence, artificial intelligence, and the paradox of it, I don't mean it as a negative connotation.
Yeah.
It's more like that's just the reality of anything
That's
that's
the
outside of
reality.
us.
Yeah.
It has to be opposite of us in order to match us internally, right?
Mhm.
Um, so what you said about Tesla, the self-driving cars, I mean, look, if I was to go down the rabbit hole of all the use cases, Tesla is my favorite example. First of all, Tesla. Well, okay, let me backtrack. It's my
Hold on,
opinion.
do
It's
we
my
need to have,
opinion.
like, some kind of, hold on,
Disclaimer.
we're not disclaimer, we're currently not responsible for anything mentioned on this call, on this podcast, blah, 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 blah.
It's just
Not
conversation between
responsible,
me
we're
and
just
Lucky. You're just having to listen in, right?
yeah,
No, I
yeah,
think Tesla. I think Tesla. They might agree with me. It's not
yeah.
artificial intelligence. It's all machine learning.
Machine learning.
Artificial intelligence is what we understand as a marketing product. When you want to market a product, call
Mhm.
it a machine learning or artificial intelligence. I would
Mhm.
call it an artificial intelligence, right? Machine learning is too scary. Machine learning is too not a good buzzword, right?
Mhm.
I think as machine learning it works wonders. It's that artificial
Yep.
intelligence is what convolutes the whole conversation. The
Yeah.
expectation, the management of the expectation is beyond control with artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Like we talk about movies and TV shows and all that, and then you put in a mix of reality. People are like, "Wait, it's kind of boring."
Yeah, what did you just say? There's steps to this. We've gotta have what? Data? We can't just have a robot just
Right.
appear and a brain and start to learn like an infant baby.
That's what I've been told all my life.
Yeah,
Why are you
yeah,
telling me something different now?
yeah,
So look, I think the Tesla case is superb because it comes with that economical benefit, right? That financial picture that you see. Oh, wait, you built an AI, now it works a magic because it's making you billions of dollars. Sure,
mhm,
sign me up, right?
yeah,
Some of the stock market tradings that are happening, there's billions of dollars of revenue that is like day and night difference from people that uses AI versus people that don't, right?
yeah,
So you said JP Morgan Chase, big money.
mhm,
Then you say BlackRock, hedge funds,
yeah,
day and night difference. JP Morgan Chase have been around for hundreds of years. BlackRock has been around for some few decades. And all of a sudden, they are blowing JP Morgan Chase out of the water. 11 trillion to 1 trillion is a huge difference, right?
yeah,
And that's because of AI contribution inside of stock
mhm,
market and machine learning that is used in stock market trading, right? The capability of
exactly,
faster stock trading,
mhm,
capability of detecting human beings in front of the car and taking a decision, making a decision and sticking to it and making the right decisions more frequently than none, right? Or opposite of it, you made lots of bad decisions, but now you're making better decisions because you've been around for a few years now, right?
yeah,
You were messy at the beginning, but people trusted you enough to stick with you, and then say, you are a machine that is learning. We will let you learn, and we'll keep continually learn until you get good at it. And that's BlackRock. That's Tesla. That's AWS, Amazon.
mhm,
That's
yeah,
the Google Translate, right? Google search bars, right? Excuse me, not search bars, but the search pages, search
mhm,
results, right? These are all machine learning, right? Alexa, Siri, machine learning. They're happening in the fastest rate possible because of machine through the help of codes.
yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting how they've grown 'cause my own digging into my bag of experience, I see that a lot of people did a lot of they were able to act with data, and they would take data and create analytics and be able to create actionable areas where they find data or things that really could help their businesses or help change the way they look at things, and then from there they took and they started to develop machine learning that would take that analytic data and act on it faster, as opposed to a human waiting to gather the data and output it with their two eyeballs, as opposed to having two human eyes. Now they have code or data that or code that's basically going out and acting on the analytic or the data that they've compiled. And that's the difference, I think, is that gives you the edge. There's machine learning, and then there's the deep learning that gives you that AI almost type of, you know, feeling that there's something that's next level now. And
Right.
and that's where we are. That's where we're at now. Where, like you're talking about, the Black Rocks and the different types of, different Fortune 500 companies that are seeing the advantages of data and building machine learning capabilities to be able to take action with that data. And what's next? Who knows? I mean, you know better than I. What do we see next?
Well, I love the Tesla use case, right?
Yeah.
Because the Tesla use case articulates what are the possibilities, right? But where do we start is also what gives birth to the full adult AI, right?
Hmm.
Because it starts off with the machine learning and it starts into that deep learning path, and then deep learning gives birth to this whole artificial intelligence. Because it's like kind of being a teenager. You know, you can walk by yourself and you make your decisions. You might make bad decisions, but you're
Hmm.
not mature enough to make those
Yeah.
good decisions that everybody can have consensus behind, right? Consensus is the key word here, right? The consensus is that what is a good decision? Can AI make it? Should AI make it? Consensus is not there yet, but in the near future, where first of all, AI has been around for 70 some years at this point, and the point where it is today, it just only has to be more mature than what it is today. And a lot of the people are not catching on to that. A lot of the people are still thinking IT, still thinking that junk
Hmm.
looking computer that we had, and we only transition into a laptop now at this point. And
Hmm.
that's the furthest transition they look at. But where they're not paying attention is the web browsers, right?
Yeah.
That web 3.0 that's coming into the place. And then there's all this cryptocurrency that's happening inside of your laptop, right? That the
Hmm.
information that you're gathering about cryptocurrency, or information you're gathering about, new technologies like blockchain, right? What you're not seeing is that these datas are blowing up beyond your laptop, right? Whatever that junky IT system you started with, and wherever the development that you see today, the fascinating Apple products and fascinating fast laptops that you see, it's far beyond that. It's
Yeah.
just that once we are knee deep into it, we are at lost already, right? And I'll tell you why. Because that's what's happening with technology today. Technology is moving a lot faster than where we are today, as far as how we embrace the technology. But what's happening is that AI technology is going to be plus that, right? It's
Hmm.
going to be like, I don't want to embrace it. Most likely, they won't. There will be a huge resistance for this artificial intelligence, because it's already threatening so many jobs, already
Yeah.
threatening so many lives, already threatening so many ways of lives, I would say, right? The way of our being. But then again, it's just like a laptop. You didn't want it at first, but now you don't live without one. I literally have 5 laptops in front of me as we speak for 5 different things. So not a big fan, but at the same time, I can't live without it, right? um, I can tell you the Tesla use case is perfect. Entertainment industries are impacting AI in such a way that I think you can back me up on this when I say internet grew because of the videos,
Yeah.
because of the amount of bandwidth that internet needed in order to provide you with video services is what gave birth to the internet that we know today. If it was just text and images, we would be still doing 56K dial-ups.
Yeah, right. I love that. Having the
um,
separate line, that was great, but you're right. That
so
we had the data, figured out, but people really pushed for it back in the day for,
ESL.
sharing videos or transferring videos. It took a long time to do you do that stuff. And so, yeah, we push the limits only because we want to see what we want to see quickly.
Yeah, and then we're seeing a huge real estate bubbles. We are seeing huge real estate
Mhm.
issues. Like, I don't know if you paid attention to the Zillow situation that happened a few months back, where the AI was at fault for losing Zillow millions of. I'm talking there's hundreds of millions of dollars, and
Zillow's the real estate application,
real
right?
estate application exactly.
Oh, okay, yeah, I do
Yeah,
remember that. Yes,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So it was just like a
Yeah, yeah,
faulty
yeah.
understanding of what an AI is, faulty expectation of what AI can do, based
Makes
on
sense.
not understanding what a statistics and machine learning is, right?
Mhm. It was the
Um,
application where the Zillow went out and just was buying properties left and
that's right.
right and trying to resell them through the application or something
That's right.
similar?
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Because they did their research and they figured if we can beat regular consumer into the market, we buy up the
Mhm.
property and sell it back to them in a higher price because they are that desperate to buy it in that specific zip code, right?
Yeah,
So when price flattened out, they weren't able to sell them fast enough for people to buy it because the price
yeah.
was already too high, and by the time they bought it,
And then they were left, yeah. I
yeah,
I got caught in the same type of real estate. I have my own real estate company, and I've fell into the same thing. I bought before I could sell.
what?
And after a while, you hold too many, and it's just that's not how it works. You wanna sell
Well,
as
that's
fast as
the
you.
that's your stock market trading
Yeah.
conundrum, right? You buy, but when do you sell? And did you
Mhm.
sell on the right time? Because if you did, you sold it too early or too late. And that's machine
Mhm.
learning 101, right?
Yeah.
Is machine learning is giving you an insight that you cannot otherwise have. Is that I'm a real estate agent. There's
Mhm.
hundreds of millions of other real estate agents in the world. How do I stay competitive? How do I stay ahead of the curve? How do I know what this 100 million other real estate agents are making moves on? If I
Yeah.
can have that data and if I can have that data calculated, as in you can have a CSV file or an Excel file full of 100 millions people's of activity, but if you cannot find the insights from that Excel file, what's the point of having that Excel file?
Yeah.
And that's the data gathering, that's the machine learning capability that we are creating this podcast around. What can we do with machine learning that hasn't been done yet?
Yeah. And I the way I see it is we're at the less than the crawling. We're not an even infant, but I'm curious to see what over time how it develops into these neural nets, these different
Yeah.
because everyone has their own is going to have their own machine learning or their own AI goals and their own neural net, and they're going to have their own. It's basically like saying they're going to have their own race, or their own. Yeah, I mean, almost you can say that different types of AIs, and I wonder when it's actually going to become. Because to me, in AI, I see it
Yeah.
for right now. We're in the niche areas. We're saying, okay, AI or machine learning can help us in these areas, but there's not that global feel that you feel from like Terminator 3
Mhm.
or where they say okay AI now the neural net now manages everything that we do. They manages the cameras, they're part of the what manages our finances which is also tied to our regular diet, where at some point everything that we do is a function of a net that's fed to us because that's what we're supposed to be doing, and I hate to say it, but not complacent or we're going to be part of Big Brother, but at some point there's going to be an assist where, like much like Siri or Alexa, right now they're just helping us with music or, take pictures or, arrange small things with IoT devices, but at some point there'll be a bigger part, and that's going to be a neural net, kind of like with Tesla. With Tesla, they everything that has to do with either connecting to the internet or driving your vehicle or solar power somewhat is going to be, or maybe even going to enough credits where you can go to Mars. That'll be part of Tesla's neural net.
Yeah.
They have their niche area. There's going to be other areas where other people, like in medicine, where there's going to be AIs or they've set up enough deep learning capabilities where they can set up different AIs that can help the human race. Like, say, for example, AIs. There's some benefit to being out in space as opposed to being out in or being on Earth. In some cases, they've proven that in space, if you were to get injured, you heal faster. In some cases, where in in hours as opposed to weeks or months in space. So what is the differences? What can the AI figure out that, how fast can we fly people that are in certain cases or in certain, maybe having certain symptoms? Do we fly them immediately to space? Ship them to space just so they can heal and then come back. You know what I mean? At some point, medicine is going to benefit from AI saying, "Oh, hey, you know what? There are some benefits here or there. You know, what are they? Are they terrestrial benefits? Are they Martian benefits? Are we having to go out to space to get some different type of medicinal or
For sure.
healing benefits?" And AI will be there to help guide us, I think, in
Right.
those areas. But there's going to be different niche areas, and I'm curious to see when that octopus is going to merge into one.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I love that octopus analogy. He's talking about models. Like those tentacles of an octopus is a model.
Yeah,
So if you have a
exactly.
model, how many models do you have, and how many models do you have to create, and how many models do you don't even know that needs to exist in order for you to be say this has all been successfully done, right? As in,
Yeah.
we did not go down this rabbit's hole of Alice in Wonderland for nothing. We have few models here and there, but this tentacles of octopus, we only seen two of them so far. There's
Exactly.
however many left we don't know yet. And this tentacle, if it's choking us, it's bad. But if it tickles us, we're all funny about it, right? But let me not lose my opportunity to be funny about Terminators and China.
Yeah.
So when you mention Terminator, of course I have to bring up China to that because Skynet is the name of the program in China that is surveilling all the public space in China.
Wow.
So wow, right? Public
Skynet.
and private cooperation, where private and public corporations are setting up cameras everywhere, and
Mhm.
imagine the tremendous amount of video feeds that are coming into their data collection process, and
Exactly.
learning from those videos unbelievable amount of information about not human behaviors alone, but just your geospatial status, your geospatial conditions, how to
Mhm.
fix a road and a bridge, how to keep your infrastructure in a good condition, what sort of damages that has happened, that if you do preventive maintenance to it, you can get so many more bucks out of your investment, right?
Mhm.
um, and I don't want to go into the tangent of it, but I do want to explain the complexity of what you're mentioning, is that how many models do we have? How many use cases do we want to work with? And how many models can we pull? Right. So you
Yeah.
mentioned neural network, of course, and neural network is, of course, my favorite topic because it talks about brain.
Yeah.
Because when your brain functions, it functions similar to how machine learning would function in order for it to do three things. For machine learning, the ability to step up to the plate and say, I can identify through whatever the means of identifying, I can label, and I can label correctly out of thousands of millions of different ways of labeling things, but I can label it correctly. So you identify, you label, and then after you label enough with high accuracy and most confidence from your not just peers, but like your you know uh, coders and your business
Mhm.
process owners, your data owners, they all have the confidence. Now they're saying, you know what, go ahead and make a decisions off of that labeling and identifying.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
once you can make those decisions, I trust you enough to do that job for me without any human intervention. Now, that's easy to say, but let's talk about some human brains, how our human brains developed and where it is as we are today, right? So when you're born, you have about a few billion neurons in your head, right? Inside of your
Mhm.
brain space, inside of that ears, right? Between the ears, inside of your eyes,
Mhm.
right?
Which is fine.
That 2 billion neurons grows over time because you're getting exposure through your five sensors. And those five sensors collect enough information that it increases that billions of neurons as a child into 86 billion neurons, give or take. Previous estimate was 100 billion neurons. Now it's 86 billion neurons, right?
Wow.
And these neurons are connected using about 125 trillion synapses. So I want to just say that there's more synapses inside of your brain, which is the bridge between your neurons, in order to these neurons to give functions to a birth to a decision making process, right?
Mhm.
So your decision making process is not as simple as you think it is. There's a lot of thin slicing to do, and I can go on about decisions and neural network and brain, but 125 trillion synapses, what that indicates is that your brain's neurons, in order to come up with a response, is using those 125 trillion synapses in all the ways possible, except for your knowing. As in, you have no idea how those 125 trillion synapses were able to fire up in order to uh, for you to make a decisions about to speak, about to eat, about to see
Hmm.
something, or whatever the case is. Now, that's just a layer of complexity, right? If we have a machine that can perform to that level, which we I don't think ever will, but that's just my opinion again. Um, let's just talk about what happens on a second to second basis, right? And in less than a second, you are collecting about, if you break it down to the data level, it's 11 million bits per second in your brain.
Wow.
Okay, so let me stop there and just repeat that. It's 11 million bits per second. 10 million of it is mostly visual. Rest of it is like through your tactical senses, excuse me, your tactile senses and your hearing senses and your touch and your smell, right? Excuse me, your smell and your taste,
Hmm.
right? Not much on the other ones, but your eyes are a huge contributor to these 11 million bits per second that you're collecting, right? And then
11
off of those
million or 11 billion?
I keep saying billion, didn't I? It's 11 million.
11 million. Okay,
So
11
it's
million
per second. So you can imagine in 24 hours, you collected that much data. But since the birth, you've been collecting that much data. And
per
that data has
second.
been processed and been collected inside of your brain
Wow.
for that long.
That blows my mind. Wow.
Like, stop kidding me right now, right? Like, don't, come on, man.
Yeah. Huh. Hmm.
So that brain complexity just gives you a pause and to say, like, wait, how are we going to compare an artificial intelligence to that? How many models does the brain feed itself in order to provide the decisions that we make on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Now, this is the second part that trips everybody out. So if you divide all those numbers and you say, like, what sort of neuron activities are you having? So the laziest person is as active as you are, because the brain doesn't stop working because you're sitting down, right? Brain is
Yeah.
moving on all the speeds and all the fires it needs in order to keep going, right? Um, it creates about 35,000 decisions a day. Brain is creating about 35,000 decisions a day off of these, 11 million bits per second of information,
Wow. So
right?
that's making coffee, blowing my nose, brushing my teeth,
Even twitching,
twitching.
even eyebrows, even a muscle movement. But if your neurons are firing, that's all that it is. It's your
Hmm.
neurons are firing because you are actually thinking. So the lazy person that we characterize as sarcastic or funny, whatever the case is, their brain is as active as ours. It's just
Yeah.
that they're not making physical decisions like most people do. So we call them something else. We call them
A
lazy,
sloth.
sloth, something like that.
Couch
Right.
potato.
But the brain is brain. Brain
Yeah.
does all the things because there's no shutting down your five sensors. Your five senses are continuously
Hmm.
gathering information that you cannot shut it down. So it has to process it, and the decisions you make off of it is different. But it does process that information, which means we identify, we label continuously. It's just that we don't make that many decisions,
Hmm.
right? So let me stop there and just say, do we need to continue talking about machine learning? Or is it
Yeah.
a farce? Is that a rumor in the street that we need to you know demystify?
I know, right? It for me, only being from the outside, it's just a step above, what proactive, like, say for example in the security field, they used to have something called an IDS, and all it did was just say, hey, we've detected something, and then they came
That's right.
out with IPS, and they
Prevention,
call
yeah,
it preventative systems, but they're
prevention.
more proactive systems. They took actions.
Right.
Now they were an algorithm that saw something and then it would take an action. And so, to me, that is still just a simple algorithm, but it was the closest thing we had to, now something was now taking data, processing it, and taking actions like alerting, blocking, what have you in the security field. What how does that apply now to machine learning? Like, how
Oh yeah,
does
no, it's just like it's like a grandfather of machine learning, right?
okay?
It just is what gives birth to all the machine learning is the algorithm,
Hmm.
right?
The
I mean,
algorithm.
like I think this is important to discuss. That the fact is, if anybody's talking and they don't talk about algorithm, and they want to sell you an AI product, they're just blowing SQL queries up your ass, right?
SQL queries.
They're
They're blowing
antique.
squall.
I'm gonna sell you cobalt, you know.
Okay.
I think it's worth mentioning that algorithm piece is very important because a lot of the people they say AI they get confused with bots. They keep thinking
Hmm.
bots. So bots is like a robotic process automation where you have a task and you perform that task and you perform it inside of a bubble.
Hmm.
When people say anything about RPAs and AIs, I said, well, let's separate that RPA. If that RPA doesn't grow over time, it's just a code that doesn't grow over time. Code doesn't
Yeah.
grow over time. Code is maintained over time. That's all it is,
Yeah.
right? You maintain it like, you got a JavaScript and you put a bootstrap on it, right? In order to
Hmm.
improve that JavaScript's performance. That's not growing every day. That's not you relearning what you knew yesterday.
Hmm.
That's what humans do. Coding is to code and then just stay stealth and then whenever we need you again, we call you and then fix you, right?
Hmm.
Machine learning is that capability. I think I sent you a picture of it earlier, the quadrant, right?
Yeah.
It's that if you can imagine like, having billions of rows of records and you take one single record from there and say like, can you read this until you get it right? Just read this one row of record. So if it says cancer on it and you read cancer properly, that means you've done your job because I set you up to learn that without telling you what it is that you're reading.
Hmm.
So a machine learning goes through that process of true positive, true negative, and false negative, right? Is that until you can figure out cancer is the word that you're reading, and when I say cancer, that's where the machine learning is actually being utilized a lot in order to detect cancer in human body, right? In order to
Hmm.
do something with cancer in human body, how can we prevent cancer from happening before it does, right? Before we detect it actually. So in an infant
Hmm.
stage of cancer, how can you detect that? So that machine learning, it goes through that four quadrants of if you can pick a single digit and say, can you learn this? And can you
Hmm.
learn more after you become confident in learning that, right? So that
Yeah.
you're true positive 99% of the time. You're false
Exactly.
negative maybe 1% of the time, right? So you have that high confidence and most accuracy that you can imagine in a machine learning. Now you give it to read billions of rows of record, and it does it within, let's say, 13 days instead
This-
of human hours of 13 years, right? Right?
Yeah.
So that's the difference in machine learning and artificial intelligence because it is just doing a very narrow topic. It's a
Very
narrow
narrow.
AI.
Hmm.
That's the best way to explain a machine learning that is fancy enough for the marketing people to sell, right? They're selling narrow AI everywhere, but that artificial general intelligence, which we're developing, which we want to talk about, and there's these imaginations of AI
Yeah.
that does your picks your partner and does your finance and takes care of your kids. That's the kind of AI that we want. But in order to get there, we have to have these sort of steps, the painful growth process, right? In order to get to that AI. And
Hmm.
I don't say that because I have the fascination behind it, but I want to go back to the billions rows of record because what happens is that you started with one set of record that grew into billions sets of records. Now you forgot your data management because data management is so hard to do. And data centers can only be few or far in between, right? How many data centers can you have in order to hold all the data that you've been collecting?
Hmm.
You don't have that many hardwares to have database with servers in them. Right? The servers are also going to run out sooner or later because you don't have enough rare earth minerals or rare earth elements in order
Hmm.
to build the
Elements.
servers.
Hmm.
So the problem, as you can see, is that we're not fascinated with the topic and trying to grow a industry out of it. It's just that we know the resources are running out and we need to do something about it immediately, right?
Yeah.
And then data
Have you
processing
seen
and data
Gattaca?
access,
Have you seen Gattaca?
Gattaca, Gattaca. Why does that sound familiar? Tell me more about
Well,
that.
it's not about so much AI, but at some point, it's almost like an AI because their entire life is managed through a system that identifies if their DNA structure is champion, and if they are, they can be assigned to different things, like the ship to different planets or different jobs in space or different jobs on Earth, and depending on what your DNA was,
Oh
the
man.
AI would say, "Hey, you are good for this job. You are good
Right,
for that
right,
job. You are a supreme athlete. You are on a score of athletes. You are a perfect 10. You can be
right.
anything, and they'll ship you to space." Or but at the end of the day, but Gattaca was a great movie that really doesn't cover AI, but does cover a lot of what we've covered. Where at some point we're all controlled by a structure, and not I'm not talking about Big Brother, but I'm saying it makes sense to be able to trust systems that help us identify, who we are. And if we but the moral of the story is we can break the mold. Whatever the system says, we can always break out of the mold and be something different because we're human. But Gattaca is something that maybe we should associate with, maybe every time we do a show, maybe associate a movie or something that we can say, you know what, because of today's topic, a good movie to watch would be this, and this is good, a good AI that kind
Right.
of covers some intelligent factor that we feel covers some of the topics in today's conversations. Gattaca
Wow.
would be it for
I just,
today's.
I just, I just looked up the trailer for it. I do remember Uma Thurman, and
Yes.
I can't remember the other guy's name, but he's pretty famous. He was in that movie, not the movie, but the TV show
Training Day.
Moonlight. Huh?
He was on Training Day too.
He was in Training Day.
Yeah.
Right, right, right.
Mhm.
So, I what what I think, and what I again is my opinion, right? What I was going with that not having enough rare earth elements. Excuse me,
Mhm.
can't say that rare earth properly.
Rare earth elements,
Rare earth
minerals.
elements. They are rare earth, right? It
Mhm.
depends on who has it. Either China has
Yeah.
it, Africa has it, or South America has it. Whoever has it doesn't want to share it or doesn't want to give you access to it, then you're stuck, right?
Mhm.
And you have to go into the space and get those materials actually from asteroids, right? Because some of the elements that you find in asteroids, you don't even know they exist yet.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
on that topic, AI has actually come up with an element that we didn't even know existed. It was because of AI research that they were able to say, "Wow, this element can
What?
be possible." Right?
What element is that? Not
I,
element 14, is it? What element is it?
I don't know much specific of it, but the thing is that these
Yeah.
elements are super important in order for us to hold on to the data. So it's not that we need to have a fascination of doing things that are pushing our boundaries. We are forced to push those boundaries because
Mhm.
of resource and lack of resources and limitation of resources, right?
Mhm.
Because without resources, you have less capabilities. So when you're talking about flying into space and flying into Mars, well, without resource that can do the job for cheap, you cannot build a cheap resource without really researching.
Mhm.
And if you want to research for next 100 years, you are more than welcome to. But you have another alternative called machine learning and artificial intelligence to set up your research using those technology. It's taking your past knowledge of however many thousands of years of knowledge and trying to build something off of that and let the machine figure out how to come to that conclusion, right?
Mhm.
Once you come to that conclusion, you use another machine learning to figure out the structure of that product. Instead of research and developing in the space, you research and develop it on the earth, knowing with high confidence and most accuracy that it will work in space. It will not break down in space because the plastic mold that you put in it, which saves you money and which saves you time, that plastic mold is good for space environment because we
Mhm.
have data on space environment, right?
Yeah.
And we can produce information and replicate that as a research and development inside of a computer without taking years to go through the painstaking process, right? Manual process.
Mhm.
A good example of that is that they built a sports car recently, all based on AI. That's what they advertised. We have to take their awards for it, but
Wow.
it's a sick sports car that is literally based off of all AI information, top to bottom, right? How
Hmm.
do you handle the wheels? How do you handle the joints? What sort of things can you do in order to make a better turn? Can you build it light enough? What sort of safety and security do you put in it so the human inside the vehicle is safe, right? Um, these are a whole lot of questions that a manufacturer will have to ask, but
Yeah.
artificial intelligence can get there faster than manual labors can do.
Just imagine the guy that provided the data for the composite steel had a bad week, and he just like, you know what? I'm just not entering all the data, or I just entered enough data.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why the statistics is the
Yeah,
key component that you don't need coder. I mean, no, you need everybody inside of
everybody.
AI
Yeah,
development. But statisticians, right? Well, let me start off with a joke because I do respect statisticians because there's not that many
statisticians. Yeah, we're both having problems
statisticians,
with it.
right? Yeah, rare earth and statistician. um, that there are lies and there are damn lies and there are stats,
Yeah.
right? So what you
Yeah.
just said is that you know it's for to use stats, using stats, you can lie through your teeth without having feeling bad about it because you're using statistics in order to lie through your teeth. Is that
Quantify.
you quantified, you skipped on information, you're not
Hmm.
providing that information.
Here's a
So
perspective.
so you're telling a
Believe
quarter of
it.
the story instead of the whole story, right? So
Exactly.
like what you said, and during a research, somebody skips their step and say, "I just don't feel like inserting that data." Well, that's how you have to ask those questions very uniquely. So that way, when you ask a question, that answer doesn't have to jive with you; it has to jive with everybody through
Hmm.
consensus because everybody is thinking the same question, right?
Yeah.
Those are the difficulties of before you start machine learning. Your questioning is your difficult part. What are you trying to achieve by investing into machine learning and putting your human labors behind it, right? If
Hmm.
you ask the wrong question, you would just go back to the questioning again, go back again, go back again. You just developed all this time, but you can
Yeah.
never deploy. And we're seeing that a lot because right now you're not able to deploy a lot of your AIs. 85% of
Hmm.
them does not deploy. They're
Yeah.
failed cases in development, right? And then 15% that does release into environment and productionalized, 77% of them does not perform to the level that they should.
Hmm.
It's underperforming.
I'm thinking of Sun Tzu right now. There's one thing that he says, know yourself, and it's having to relate to war, but this is not war. But know yourself and know your enemy, and you will not lose a battle. And maybe I miss. Maybe
No,
I'm
that, that
hacking it
that
all up.
that makes all the sense in the world, right?
You
It's
have to
like you know
know who
yourself
you
and
are.
know your enemy. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, you got to know your enemy as good as you know yourself, because
Yeah.
you have to. So I think a good example of what you just said is that that Marvel movie where Doctor Strange had that 14 million scenarios that he ran through in order
Oh
to
yeah,
come
yeah,
to a
yeah,
single scenario that something will work or not work. Well,
yeah.
that's what AI's capability have to be. That's how sophisticated an AI system has to have the models built into it. So it's able to calculate 14 million scenarios in few minutes, or let's call it a few seconds, because that's what we want to get to, in order to give you a decision, the best capable decisions, right? So think
Hmm.
about, you're driving a Tesla. Your Tesla has to have the ability to crunch that much information within a nanosecond in order to save either you as the driver or the person outside of your car, right? So the Tesla has to decide, is the driver's life worth it, or is the passenger's life worth it, or is the person that's outside the car, is that person's life worth it? Who are
Wow.
we going to save? And that
Hmm.
decision has to happen while the car is driving 70 miles per hour. So complexity is there, but it's not impossible. What's
Yeah.
happening today in the machine learning, it's always an indicator of what's happening through the fastest way to compute, which is the algorithm, and then the ability to have that much data stored and those data available for easy access, right?
Hmm.
Um, because we talk about in cybersecurity CIA, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Yep.
They are there and they're much better than what they used to be. and computational powers is coming along very well, very fast. It's actually improving over time. And then we have I think we talked about CIA, which is the data, and then we have algorithm that is the computational power, and then we have the third component, which I'm skipping my head right now. What is the third component of that? You have computational, you have data, and then you have um, I have no idea what the third part is. Yeah, but you need that third component. That's what's making the AI successful
Hmm.
at this point with many of these like industries. As in, you talked about manufacturing. We can talk about food tech, right? Food industry, healthcare, blowing machine learning out of the water at this point. It's
Hmm.
insane how much they're investing in healthcare. Logistics and transportation, if you can imagine that. I think the first truck that drove one side of the country to another on its own has been like 2 weeks ago or something like that. And
Wow.
then, if you want to talk about traveling to space, traveling to Indonesia, and you don't want to travel through the sea, you travel into the space and you just drop down into Indonesia whenever you feel like, right?
Hmm.
These all requires R&D, and then we have to have the right intention and the right question in order to address those R&Ds, those research and developments.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to see that all of this. Like I said, I'm waiting to see when the octopus finally develops a head and all the tentacles form. But yeah, I'm excited, and I think that there's a lot of promise, and we're all just really excited because as kids, all us nerds watched all the different technology or AIs or space movies or movies that really kind of pushed us into being nerds, and I can only see that the not that the movie but the imagination of people really developing more over time and innovation, creating a lot of those dreams that I know right now are pie in the sky with robots and what's it, not I Am Legend, it's I Robot. I Am
Mm.
Legend, I Robot. Will Smith has a lot of eyes in his movies. So but I Robot or things like um things that were will be to benefit visually, where we have a partner, is where that's where people are really going to see it on the that really notice. But what people don't know is AI is already growing all around us. It's just slow. It's in infancy right now.
So I think earlier I talked about one of the biggest data collection system, which is your brain,
Hmm.
the little muscle inside of your ears, right, between your ears. Um, so what they're working on right now is to tap into that brain and have that brain do commands without ever using any of the five senses, right? As in, we are able to read the neurons, the neuron activities, the let's just call it the electricities inside of our brain,
Yeah.
in order to transform that into a command using a Bluetooth device. So we had this technology for the last 30 years where we were able to plug in a socket in the back of our head in order to, have a person give
What?
instruction or have their muscle movements manipulated so that way they are able to do things right. But that was very static a way of
Hmm.
having that system work. So right now what they have is the hairline side, like very very fine hair like particles that is stitched into your brain, right? They cut open your brain and then kind of put the stitch inside of your head, and a robot does that, right? And then using a Bluetooth device, which is the wire is hanging off your head, and then that wire is attached to a Bluetooth device. That Bluetooth device gives out commands in order to do tasks, right? So you want to send a text message to somebody using a Bluetooth device, or you want to open
Oh,
an email. So many different
my
kinds of.
lord, that is awesome.
Yeah, this is the BMI, right? The brain machine interface. So
Oh my
so that, that
gosh,
that's
the
that's where we are
interface. That's going to
today.
be the BMI, the main
Yeah,
interface.
brain machine interface. So that
BMI.
brain machine interface is what's going to open up
Wow.
tons of these possibilities. As in, think about how much data that we are collecting, and as we collect that data, if we are able to process it and have data analysis done from our thought processes, we are able to do more with less planning. And
Wow.
I mean that as in literally inside of your brain, there's a happy person and there's a planning person, right? You have
Uh-huh.
tons of different personality inside, right? That planning person does planning and to do person does to doing, right?
And you
I
just
can't
sit there and let the other guy run around, and you're like running
right,
around
right,
the back
right,
of your
right.
head.
The planners are slower actually versus to do person is either slower or very fast,
Wow. So just imagine
pure
if you could
power.
have like a left brain sensor and a right brain sensor, and you can be doing art in at one time and then be doing texting and messaging on the other. Like
It's the capability, the intentions that you have, the questions that you're asking is giving your capability, the capability of doing arts and watching Mickey Mouse at the same time, right? Whatever the case you want to
wow.
have. So these kind of abilities is what's in the pipeline that's already a reality, right? So like I said, 10, 15 years from now, the technology that we are struggling to embrace today is going to outpace us 100 to 1 versus 10 to 1 as it is today, right?
Wow.
I think these kind of conversations is what we will have more frequently, and we need to because more people understands these kinds of conundrum and paradox, and that ability to look at ourselves and look at our enemies and understand our enemy very well. I think there's a whole lot to unfold in these conversations.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I learned something new today.
BMI, brain machine
B-
interface.
BMI. Wow. It's not body mass index. It's you know it's brain main interface. Wow. That is, or maybe it could be CMI, cerebral main. Who knows? But BMI sounds cool.
It's also BCI, right? Brain
BCI.
computer
Oh, so
interface,
that's
and things like
those are the
that.
real acronyms for them.
Right,
BCI.
right, right.
What is BCI? Brain
Computer interface, things
computer
like that.
interface.
Pretty much your brain is just communicating to a system using a
Yeah,
Bluetooth device.
I
The
think
Bluetooth is
BMI will
the
stick.
most recent. The wire has been around for a while.
Wow, interface. Plugging right in. All right, Neo, let's do this.
I gotta tell you, every time I watch Matrix, I think about you because the layer 1 through layer 7. How many
Oh
times
yeah,
did you put that hammer in my brain and said, "Learn that, learn that, learn that"?
you have to, man. It's always going to be applicable to everything, no matter what they change. There's
No matter
always
what
going
they
to be
change, it's always gonna be a layer 7. Yeah.
yeah, there's going to be a circuit board, and there's going to be an interface, and there's going to be a communication method, whether it be one way or another, whether it be terrestrial, whether it be through some kind of cop wire, or if it's being
Well,
transmitted over the
so
air,
tell me,
it's
tell
going to
me this:
apply.
like, did you catch the part when they were talking about going from layer 1 to layer 3? Did
What do
you
you mean?
catch that? Because that gave me such an excitement and thrill to know what they were talking about. They were talking about layer 3. They said like we're in layer 1, we're jumping into layer 3. Get ready. And
Yeah,
that was the highlight of the full movie because I was like, I got the reference of that, and it
yeah,
was because of you.
yeah. Layer 3, layer 4, and layer 1 and layer 2. But once you jump into layer 3, the lights turn on.
Right.
And it's going to be that way for IPv4 and IPv6
Oh, oh,
and
oh.
and the way that lays out. But yeah, that's all. It's just the flickering, and all of a sudden, boom, that light gets bright, and you realize what communications is, and what computing systems are, and what data is, and what transmissions and communications are.
Right.
And it's not going to change. It's just going to be a different. There's going to be a different layer at layer 6 and 7 for encryption, and what APIs or AIs are going to be running at layer 7. But yeah,
and
that's all
and that
applicable.
layer 7 AI is what Matrix keeps bringing up, is that this layer
Hmm.
7 is so powerful that it can elude you into thinking what you see is what you feel. And the
Hmm.
BMI concept could trigger that backward. Instead of your brain is commanding your machine, the machine is commanding your brain to feel and think and see things that are not real while you're sitting on a chair for all your life
Oh
thinking you've been
yeah.
around the world.
Oh yeah. They could insert. They could make you happy.
They could make you
Where
happy.
people that are really have problems with depression, or
Right.
just people, all they need to do is be inserted positive juice now, positive
Positive
images,
juice, right? And
and
there's an actual case of, if you have a seizure problem, right?
mhm.
There's things that zap your brain into not having that seizure, right?
Oh yeah,
This is not a technology that is like out of a fictional movies or something like that. It's a reality that
it's
you zap your
reality.
brain and the brain
Wow.
does things. But one thing I will break down to people that might listen to this podcast is that when they show you opening your brain, like as in opening your skull from the top, and all they show is the brain, that is the worst movie idea anybody has ever done in the movie industry, which is you never can actually open the top of your skull actually that way, because there's a vein right in the middle that is full of blood. It will gush out all sorts of blood if you open that ever, right? So you always have to maintain that helmet, the right and left side of your brain. You can only open the right and left side of your brain, not the middle.
Wow.
And in the movie industry, like that movie where the guy was eating things out of the brain. No, let's
Silence
not
of the
go.
Lambs.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And that was a bad
Clarice.
visual. Puts the lotion on his skin and it gets hosed again.
Yeah. Oh my god. Hey, I think that's Joe Dirt. It puts the lotion on the skin. Okay, man. But
So
yeah. Yeah.
with that, I think we have to call this a day, because this
Okay.
conversation was fascinating, and that's what inspires me to do this podcast, because there's just so
Mhm.
much to talk about. We went from Matrix to AI to having depressed thoughts about how machine might be able to take over our brain.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
let's continue this conversation. I'm always fascinated to what our guest will bring to the topic, but between me
Yeah.
and you, we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, yeah, and this was great. Again, I enjoy this space. I enjoy technology, and I want to thank you for really, really making this a regular thing on our Wednesdays. Sometimes life kind of pulls us in different directions, but being diligent and really trying to get information out there is, I think, what we can do and benefit others. So, thank you for giving us this platform.
But we forgot one thing. We forgot to mention the name
Yes.
of this podcast,
Oh yeah.
which is AyAyAyAi.
Yeah.
But
Aye, aye,
I will let
aye.
you say it. All
uh,
right. Adios.
AI.
I'll see you all next week.
All right.
See ya, Lucky.